The stakes are so high. The debate is going to be
I thought we were going
a capital conversation.
Good morning, Dee Dee. Are you ready for another Capital Conversation?
You betcha. I'm always ready for a little capital conversation.
So, over the weekend, Tina Fey is Sarah Palin, live or Memorex?
You know, it was perhaps the most brilliant political impersonation I've ever seen. And if Sarah Palin does not become vice president, it will be a shame only because it will rob Tina Fey of the chance to really keep that character alive.
It seemed really striking how much she had, not only her mannerisms, but the patterns of speech, everything, her body language,
Right.
posing for
Right.
a gun in her
Right.
hand when she
Right.
was talking with Amy Poehler about Hillary. You know, it's easy to joke about Sarah Palin, but there's also a serious side this past week with the interviews with Charlie Gibson.
Right.
Very critical stories over the weekend in both the New York Times and Washington Post about her record as mayor and governor. Is any of this sort of critical stuff beginning to stick to Sarah Palin, who had such a fantastic first 2 weeks of rollout?
We'll see. I mean, I think to a very large degree, the really severe hazing that she went through in the first days of her being announced as McCain's running mate, in some ways indemnified her against these future attacks. I think there's a big swath of the electorate that is going to discount anything the mainstream media has to say about her, her record, her qualifications for office. There is that segment in the middle, and we'll see if they're still persuadable. I mean, this raises a lot of questions, not just about Sarah Palin, but about the viability of the mainstream media as the fact checker in our national political life.
It struck me that Charlie Gibson was pretty straight ahead in his interview last week. He wasn't trying to trap her. He didn't have a lot of gotchas.
Right.
Even when she couldn't immediately explain what the Bush Doctrine was,
Right.
acted like she never heard of it. He explained it to her, and it could be, you know, there's more than one way to look at what
Right.
that would mean.
And I think, I think Charlie Gibson did a good job, and he got some criticism from the left for not being tough enough, and some from the right for being condescending, which puts him pretty much down the middle. I thought he did a difficult job in a very difficult situation.
Do you think she'll have to do a news conference now, or some other interviews with serious people?
I think it's too soon to see. Yeah, I think she has to do more interviews, and I think they're saying Katie Couric maybe next in line, and perhaps Brian Williams after that. Actually, Sean Hannity is the next in line. I don't think that counts as a serious interview with a serious person. It's an interview with an in-the-tank political commentator. But nonetheless, I think she will have to do some of that. Whether she has to do a full-dress news conference, too soon to say. If they can get away without doing one, of course they will.
Now, what about John McCain? Barack Obama's finally running ads that say, what's happened to John McCain? What's happened
Right.
to this honorable guy? He went on The View last week, and the ladies basically
Right.
cut him a new one, is what they used to say.
They slapped him around a little bit. I think the mistake that liberals or Democrats or whatever continue to make in this is to focus too much on Sarah Palin. Sarah Palin is an issue only insofar as what she says about John McCain. And what she says about John McCain is that he was willing to basically go with a political gimmick in some regard in order to try to win this election. And that goes to the central, I think, strength of his candidacy, which is his honor. He's a person who, his whole theme is country first. Well, is picking Sarah Palin really country first? What does it say about John McCain? And more important than
Do you think
that,
he really thinks she's ready to be president on day one?
No.
I don't think so for a minute.
I don't think he does.
Yeah.
And he can argue, he can, go through the talking points when he's on television, but in the dark night of his soul, does he think this is the person best able to deal with a really tense international situation? And now look what's happening in the domestic economy and the international economy. Just over the weekend, we saw 2 of the 5 Wall Street giants cease to be in their current form. I mean, that's just yesterday.
But it brings a question, though. The mainstream media has begun, so-called, and the alternative media have been pointing out these contradictions, have been pointing out these things. Does it matter, or is Sarah Palin this magic bullet indemnified, and the more people criticize her, the more the voters will hug her tighter?
I do think it matters some, but again, the argument has to go from, Sarah Palin, for all the one heartbeat awayness of her position, is not running for president. John McCain is running for president. And so all the questions about Sarah Palin have to be then, I think they have to be, reflected. It has to be a bank shot back to John McCain. This is about Barack Obama and John McCain. So how do you make Sarah Palin about John McCain and not about Sarah Palin? People like her enough. People who were already voting for Obama don't like her, but they weren't going to like whoever he picked. What does it say about John McCain? And I think we have to get back to this. Ultimately, again, is going to be a race between Senator Obama and his vision for the future and John McCain and his vision for the future. And if Sarah Palin is about the future of the Republican Party, what does that make John McCain? If Sarah Palin's drawing tens of thousands of people to rallies, but John McCain can't hold a rally without her, what does that say about him?
So the next big development, the debates, first debate barely 2 weeks away. We'll be back here on Capital Conversation to talk about that and all kinds of other things.
Every other unexpected development in between.
Thanks a lot for joining us.
Thank you.